Japanese Martian Robot Souls by Neil A. Hogan.
Help us, Hiru.
The impassive metal face of the robot stared at him, arms outstretched.
Release us!
Another robot struggled to turn, but its programming prevented it.
Release us, please,
said another, oil dripping from its eye lights.
No!
Screamed a high-pitched voice.
I saved you and now you're mine. You'll stay mine forever. Ha 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 ha.
The evil laugh echoed around the Martian habitat dome, shadowy fingers stretching across the plastic walls, reaching for Hiru.
You're next.
An angelic voice interrupted.
I have faith in you.
Hiru awoke with a start as the rocket base touched down, dreaming again. He must have passed out during re-entry. The deceleration and steadily increasing gravity were taking its toll. He tried to move, but couldn't yet. Martian body, Earth gravity. Not a good combination. Not when he'd spent most of his life in about a third of the weight that Earthens were used to. It wasn't long before the interplanetary rocket's exhaust fumes had been fanned away from the landing pad, and the passengers could disembark. Hiru was the first out of the first-class level, his light satchel now weighing heavy against his thin frame. He was offered a private electric wheelchair by one of the hosts, and he took it gratefully, joining many others who exited the nose cone area after him. They'd all suffered from severe motion sickness from being seated at the top of a settling rocket, but it was preferable to being deafened by the fuel explosions several levels down. Even so, everyone would have been shaken by landing on the heaviest landable planet in the solar system. His breathing labored, Hiru struggled to be comfortable as the wheelchair on autopilot guided him to immigration. The Japanese spaceport in Aomori was crowded at this time of year, with interplanetary travelers eager to experience Earth but not so eager to experience hot weather. Through the thick windows he could see snow lashing the outside, piling up in little drifts that were then quietly melted by under-road heaters. Cold weather and lower sunlight were very much preferred by the rest of the Solicans, and he was pleased that he was having to come now, and not in 6 months' time. His chair slid into the queue, and he waited, gasping for breath, watching as others wheezed and sweated around him, struggling with their extra weight. He was sweating too, but it wasn't from the gravity. Careful not to look down at his right side, he sensed with his body that the package was safe. He couldn't mention it, and if someone had found it, it would probably take some explaining. Then again, perhaps it was okay to bring it with him. There wasn't anything on the outer planets that could contaminate Earth. It usually worked the other way, but he couldn't afford the risk of not being able to bring it. Desperately trying to be nonchalant, he flicked his eyes around at those lining up and the officers who were monitoring the queue. Most of them looked bored. He doubted anyone coming off a rocket could be any kind of threat, especially someone in first class. Then his heart skipped a beat. An officer was looking in his direction. Another next to him was pointing. Had he been discovered? Had they somehow scanned him without knowing? Did they want to know what was in the package? His lungs labored, but he remained calm. He should not jump to conclusions. He pretended not to notice as the man came over to him, his black suit and tie looking official, but not disguising that the man was shivering in the cold spaceport.
Tanaka-san,
the suited man said, bowing in reverence.
This way, please.
Hiru gave a careful nod. The man had not asked. He was leading him somewhere. Was he helping him? And then he remembered. Of course, it would have been all over the news. His mother had been famous. Hiru swiped the controls on the wheelchair and took over from the autopilot. The large wheels trundled him forward. The man slowed to walk beside him and indicated the path they were going. Hiru guessed the man felt it wouldn't be respectful to walk in front, but he wouldn't have minded either way. He was just glad he wasn't after his package. The man led him down a corridor to a sliding wall and swiped his hand across a panel.
Tanaka-san, your private chair is waiting for you in this area.
The door slid open, and the man smiled, pointing with his outstretched hand to indicate where Hiru could go. The man bowed again.
Our center management bids you welcome to our humble spaceport and wishes you an enjoyable stay in Aomori.
Hiru was surprised but pleased. He had got through immigration so fast he hadn't even had time to declare anything. Hiru nodded to the man in thanks, and his wheelchair took him through the doorway and out into the main thoroughfare. He was traveling light and had left most of his luggage in the space station in orbit, so there was no need to visit the luggage collection areas. He had no intention of spending longer than was absolutely necessary. The man slid the door shut behind him as Hiru got his bearings. Not far away was the self-service center for hiring the red travel chairs. These had even larger wheels for negotiating bumps on roadways, and he could see one of them had started rolling towards him, stopping in the best position for him to switch seats. He had pre-booked it, so it probably had facial recognition software.
Welcome to Aomori Spaceport, Tanaka-san,
said the chair. Hiru grunted in reply as he clambered across and tried to get comfortable. On Mars, he was quite fast, jogging down the pressurized mines, leaping across dome bridges, climbing Olympus Mons on his weekends off. But here, he felt too tired to even move his arms. The weight was making him sleepy. He still had a lot to do. The hotel, then the trip to the mountain, then the meeting, then, if all went well, back to the rocket and back to Mars. He thought he could get everything done today, but perhaps he was just going to be too tired. As soon as Hiru was seated, the chair headed towards the exit, falling into line behind other passengers in their own red chairs. Then he remembered. He'd forgotten to take the restoration capsule. He reached into his left pocket with a shaking hand. The little nanobots would go to work and readjust his body to cope with the increased gravity, stimulating the main areas he needed for coping with the increased pressure and stress. He found it and quickly swallowed it without water. Leg pain, arm pain, neck pain, nausea, swollen eyes, headache, high blood pressure, faster heartbeats. He didn't need a medbot to tell him his condition. 2 hours a day in the gym on the 3-month flight over was not enough to adjust himself to Earth gravity. Without that capsule, he was hours away from a heart attack. His age was the equivalent of 40 Earth years, but with the low stress, pressure, and protective environment, his body hadn't aged much past 28. On Mars, he still felt it, and would go drinking with some of the younger residents on his nights off, not telling them his age or who he really was, of course. Then again, Titanium King wasn't really the sort of moniker he wanted to be known by. For a long time he had hidden in his mother's shadow. No more. He felt the capsule start to dissolve and let out a sigh, despite himself. A warmth began to spread across his body as nanobots started giving his cells a bit of a push here and there, strengthening everything from the stomach out. He was starting to feel better already, though it would be a while before the bots would reach his severe neck pain. He had no idea his head had been so heavy. The chair made its way out of the spaceport, through the car park, and began its journey to the business hotel. Hiru just sat in the chair like a corpse, barely able to raise a finger. Even the wind was becoming unbearable. He was already missing the breezeless domes and lower gravity of his home. He'd never felt wind before, and the slightest breath of the air surprised him, causing him to flinch painfully, expecting a delivery drone to be flying nearby. Of course, there were a few here and there, but they were far above. The AI in the armrest advised caution.
Tanaka-san, your vital signs are not safe. May I suggest?
Eye off,
said Hiru, annoyed. He should have turned it off earlier. He was expecting a report and didn't want it recording anything. His hand shook as he took manual control of the chair via the touch panel. The chair hummed and pulled over to a faster lane, the large wheels absorbing much of the shock of the bumps that divided the pathways, and he carefully jostled for a position behind the other chairs. His doctor had advised him that no amount of exercise would adapt him for the additional gravity. Even with the capsule, Hiru would need a few weeks. He didn't have a few weeks. His communicator beeped. The hourly report had arrived 15 minutes late again, the time it currently took for a signal to get to Earth from Mars.
Rutile and leucoxene mineral deposits found in the latest survey near Olympus Mons.
The text report was read in a robotic female voice.
Potential for high yield TiO2 of 95%.
He smiled. Some good news at last.
Request permission to proceed.
The robot had ended its brief report. Standard sign-off. They only needed his voice print.
permission given. Authorization, Hiroyuki Tanaka.
He knew they would be very excited in 15 minutes' time. The communicator disconnected. As the cold chilled him, the gravity deadened his senses, and the steady electric hum of the chair relaxed him. Unbidden thoughts occupied his mind, reliving his recent past. Autopilot automatically engaged as he drifted into a daydream. He was the last of the great titanium miners on Mars. High-grade titanium was still used in some rockets, but the new organically grown EM ships were becoming more popular as they lasted longer in the asteroid belt. Self-repairing skins were ideal when constantly bombarded by high-speed particles, and so titanium wasn't in demand as much as it used to be. Lower profits every year meant Hiru had already created an exit strategy. The other mining companies weren't interested in buying at the price he wanted, but he knew that if he were to simply close and leave the area, leaving it to the Mars authorities, his competitors would swoop in and get it from the government for a song. But there was one thing he had to do before he sold it, or gave it away, and for that he needed his mother's password. Unfortunately, it hadn't been that simple. His mother was dead, and had taken the secret of the password with her. AIs, robot assistants, code breakers and more had thoroughly searched every communication and recording his mother had made. There were no spoken words, no typed access, nothing. The AIs had all the latest software for cracking codes that Hiru had been able to buy, but they had not succeeded. The titanium mines would continue to be run effectively without complete access. They had sub-access for most systems. It was just that one particular section of code had been shut off. 5 robots were slaves to that system, and he needed to release them before he resigned, or, at the very least, handed over ownership of the business to others. Suddenly the chair skidded on the icy surface, waking him from his reverie, and he found himself struggling to regain traction.
Aye, on.
He gripped the armrests as the chair began careening out of control.
I hope you had a lot of fun, Tanaka-san.
The AI took control, and the little chair stabilized, moving back onto the path towards the business hotel.
It is fun to manually control the chair, isn't it?
Hiru was silent. He really didn't need this interruption to his thoughts.
Please advise the hotel that I am on my way.
Hiru could see it looming in the distance, at least 100 stories tall and about 10 windows wide. He would be on level 75. Then he winced at the thought. He was going to take an elevator, more G's for his suffering body. It was almost as though the AI had been reading his mind, or perhaps it had learnt that this was a common thought of visitors from Mars.
The lifts in this building move very slowly, as the hotel management very much cares about the well-being of our Martian visitors.
Hiru sighed. Today he no longer felt 28. He felt 60, and he didn't like it, not one bit. Mount Osore wasn't far from the spaceport, and after a shower and a rest, Hiru readied himself for the trip to the mountain. The capsule had done its work, and his regular exercise had started to pay off. He was starting to feel human again, although finding he could still barely lift a bottle of water was a small surprise. The lift ride was over in seconds, and he exited the hotel to find the mountain hover bus was waiting for him outside. He carefully climbed up the steps and into his designated seat. After a few minutes, the doors closed, and the bus left with just him on board. For a moment he was surprised, but then remembered that he had had special clearance. The mountain was usually closed at this time of year, but could be opened for a price and a waiver. Even so, the hover bus was restricted to how high it could go in the cold and snowy weather, and it let him off just beneath the entrance to the caldera. He would need to walk the rest of the way. Weekends climbing Olympus Mons had given him the flexibility in his arms and ankles that he needed for sudden slips and slides in this wet terrain. Even so, if he had had to use a rope, slipped and swung wide, he knew he would simply shatter against a wall in this environment. A few minutes of climbing, and he was at the caldera entrance. He knew the woman would wait, but he didn't want to keep her waiting. He also wanted to get this over and done with as quickly as possible. He slipped and stumbled across the ground, drawing his cloak tighter to keep out the cold, drops of snow smacking at him sideways, leaving stinging marks where they had found his flesh. The walk frightened him, as each step was a lot faster than he was used to, and attempting to walk at a slow pace pulled on his hamstrings and lower back. Reaching out for the next handhold had him missing repeatedly, banging his knuckles just before the top. The capsule was definitely not enough to improve coordination and faster reaction times. All it did was enable him to deal with the pain of the additional gravity. When he had decided to take this journey of last resort to Mount Osore, he had no idea it would be this difficult. He had had many try to dissuade him, many more try to misdirect him, but he was determined. He knew that only here would he find the answer. When science had failed so spectacularly, and there was absolutely no other way, the only other option was to ask the ancients, to go back to the old beliefs and see if they could help. Even with several generations of Martian life, the Tanakas had retained some semblance of their belief in superstitions, and Hiru was now remembering everything that he had learnt as a child. He tripped over something and almost fell, grabbing a nearby rocky outcrop just in time. Gratefully, he steadied himself. If he had fallen hard with his current weight, he probably wouldn't have been able to get up again. He looked back at what he had tripped over. A little Jizo statue, the child protector, stared up at him impassively. He needed 2 hands to straighten it. Then, puffing and wheezing, he dragged it out of the pathway and set it up to the side. He gave it a brief prayer of thanks and moved on, knowing the Jizo had appeared to slow him down for his protection. Even so, he didn't want to be late for his meeting with the Itako. As he rounded another snow-specked area, he found a path covered in slick, grey, muddy ice, charred earth, and what looked to be pockets of steam belching from green-tinged areas. A wind of methane choked him, and he pulled his jacket collar across his mouth to help him breathe. The semi-active caldera looked so desolate, and if it wasn't for the gas and steam, and his lack of a spacesuit, he could have easily believed he was on Phobos. In Japanese mythology, this volcano mountain marked the entrance to hell, and Hiru had heard the stories of deceased souls symbolically crossing the Sansu River to the spirit dimension. Now that he could see the place, he knew it had to be correct. This plain was like the edge of death itself, a portal to another world. Stepping carefully, he navigated around soft holes, steaming mud and snow, and made his way to the end of the path, where a little flag sporting Japanese kanji shook in the cold winds. The Itako's place. Finally. The Itako were Japanese shamans, blind women with a lifetime of service to their spirit guides. They could connect with any deceased person and translate their thoughts into Japanese. Hiru's mother had died just a few weeks ago, on Mars, an airlock accident. She had been cremated in accordance with tradition. He hadn't quite believed she was dead until he had taken his mother's ashes, sorted through them for any bones that may have remained, and then crushed them into powder for easier distribution among his cousins. As the last direct descendant of his mother, it was his responsibility. He had brought some of her ashes with him. It's what his special package contained. Perhaps it would help the Itako find the password. Without it, he could never release his siblings. He stood in front of the entrance. Should he call out?
Ashes are just a symbol. They are not usually needed,
Came an old voice from within. The cloth door blew aside to reveal a wizened old woman in a headscarf, seated on a cushion inside a cold, cave-like area with worn blankets hanging on the rocky walls. Her folded, overweight shape could have been mistaken for a little Buddha statue. The last Itako. A small fire made of rocks and twigs burned to her left, and an attractive Japanese girl with flowing black hair, perhaps in her early 20s, tended the flames, very much aware that Hiru was there. The flickering shadows concealed the details of her face, but he could tell from her profile that she was beautiful. Why did she stay in this desolate place? A carer? A relative? He wrenched his eyes away from the girl and turned back to the Itako. He saw that the Itako's eyes were white with blindness, and he felt sad for her.
She has been waiting for you, Tanaka-san.
The old woman continued in her dry, ancient voice.
She has spoken with you in your dreams, but you do not remember.
He would remember if his mother had spoken to him in his dreams. All he could remember were nightmares. The woman indicated with her hand.
Sit.
She waited until Hiru had sat opposite her, on a similar soft stool, and had placed his bag securely next to him.
I will connect for you now.
She placed her knotty fingers together, then closed her mouth tightly and breathed deeply through her nose. A strange sound, not unlike a vacuum pump. Was she sucking the spirit from the other world? Hiru watched her do this several times while her head jerked forward and back, again and again. She lifted her head up, her white eyes looking to the ceiling of the cave, and then, as her head snapped down to face him, it happened. The lines, the calmness, and the slight smile disappeared. A complete transformation came over the woman's face. New lines formed, shaping her eyes, cheeks, and lips in a different way. Modern Japanese Martian lines, familiar frown lines. Even her jaw seemed to lengthen. She had connected to her, to Mother.
Hello, Hiru, dear.
The voice was different, deeper, almost malevolent. No longer an Aomori accent. This was modern Olympus-san JM Prefecture, a voice he had heard all his life, a voice that terrified him.
Before I answer your question, Hiru, you need to answer mine.
Hiru took a deep breath. If this was really happening, if this was really his mother coming through, he knew what she would ask.
Why did you kill me, Hiru?
Hiru was silent. Only the whistling of the cold winds and the slight crackling of the fire punctuated the silence. The Itako didn't react to this information coming through her mouth, and neither did the girl at the fireplace. No judgment, only love. Even so, his emotions got the better of him, and he rose to his mother's challenge, forgetting the strain of the planet on his body.
I didn't kill you.
His face now flushed with anger.
I wasn't even there.
But it was you that sent me there.
The words were spat at him.
I could have lived rather than be sucked out into the deadly atmosphere. You left me to die on the other side of a locked airlock, chasing an erratic robot that you had programmed.
The Itako's face was angry, her white eyes blazing.
How you ground my bones with such satisfaction. You reveled in my death. You blamed me for the deaths of your siblings. All I wanted to do was to save you all. I was completely innocent.
It's not true!
Hiru gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He couldn't believe her audacity, even in death.
None of this is true. You are evil. You killed my brothers and sisters.
The voice gave an eerie chuckle.
I did not. I saved them. I saved them all from their little fatal accidents. They're now in a safe place, saved forever.
Release their spirits from their bonds.
He took a step closer, hot rage wanting him to attack the woman, then stopped. It was just a voice. He stepped back and looked up, holding back his tears.
You're dead. You don't have to care.
I know why you're here.
Her whisper was vile, stabbing deep.
Access to the cloud account where everyone is stored. You want to release all the data, all those minds. Let them disappear into the ether.
Then she paused.
No. What good would it do?
Tears began to slide down Hiru's cheeks. He couldn't believe, even in death, she would deny him. Did he have to fight her?
Then they would be free. Not trapped in the robot shells. You converted our family into servants.
But I served them for years. Surely it was their time to serve me.
Her voice louder this time, as though scolding a child.
You ignored me when I grieved for your father. You all left me to go mad, caught up in your own worlds. You forget the old ways. Living on other planets has changed you. Children took care of their parents, but not anymore, huh, Hiru?
She shook her head as though in sadness.
For the parents to get the children to take care of them, we had to start our own businesses, hire them to work for us, and then, and only then, when we paid them, would they do their duties. That isn't the way, Hiru. It was not the way of our ancestors.
She paused, her expression changing, imploring Hiru to understand her. But he'd seen these expressions before. Her constant changing from one emotion to another, to manipulate. Whatever worked moment to moment. Even in death she kept her mental instability. He knew now that she was truly evil to the core.
And all my darlings,
She continued, this time smiling.
after your father died, I wanted you to serve me back. Pay me back for wiping your little bottoms, listening to your hours of crying, feeding you, putting up with your teenage dramas. But now you've inherited my child bots. You can keep them. Your brothers and sisters, they can serve you.
The demon laughed.
I have left you a wonderful gift. You will never need to access the...
The Itako coughed, and her face changed back to a calm demeanor again. She had lost the connection. The beautiful girl at the fire carefully came over to tend to her, dabbing her mouth, holding up a ceramic cup for her so that she could sip some water.
I'm sorry.
Hiru knew his mother was causing this poor woman a lot of pain. The beautiful girl turned to him, and for the first time Hiru noticed she was also blind. An apprentice then, a very caring one. So this wasn't the last Itako. Perhaps there would be more.
She will recover, Hiru.
The girl took the cup from the old woman.
It is common. Connection is difficult if the spirit laughs.
Hiru nodded, then remembered that neither of them could see him.
I understand. Thank you.
How angelic her voice was, thought Hiru. Even with the stress of his mission and the difficulty of the environment, he allowed himself a moment to be taken with her beauty. The fireplace girl stood back, bowed reverently, then went back to the fire.
Tanaka-san,
The Itako's voice was weak. The demon spirit had taken a lot out of her.
ask your question directly. She must answer. Then this will be over.
She clasped her hands again and focused, deeply breathing, and then Hiru's mother's personality returned to her face. He didn't want to lose the chance.
Mother, how can I access the cloud service? How can I release them? What is the password?
His mother was silent, as though grinding what little teeth the Itako had. The spirit would not give up her secret so easily.
Tell me, or I will ask the Itako to make sure you never leave this place. You'll wander forever in these wastelands.
There was a gasp, and then his mother's voice cried out with a statement that filled him with dread.
I do not know.
He stared at the Itako in shock. There was no way this shaman could have known what she had known, but not knowing the code put his belief into her in doubt. But if this was true, and his mother really didn't know, Then his siblings were trapped in robot bodies forever. Even if he destroyed the robots, he couldn't release their minds from the cloud. The Itako's hands shook as she fought the creature's energy. The girl moved to her side again and helped the old woman, laying her hands on her, giving her energy so that she could find the answer somewhere in the spirit. Hiru flinched at the dry scream coming from the old woman. He could tell she was fighting the spirit, using everything she had.
She is breaking the barrier.
The girl's face looked horrified. A wind began swirling around the cave. Wall blankets flapped, and the fire went out. A glow surrounded them, and suddenly a ghostly essence emerged from the glow and flew into the air above, flying around, howling. The Itako coughed.
Your mother is a demon.
She waved an old arm.
Perhaps during her grief at your father's passing, she opened up too much and let one in. Now they are one, but I have found the answer.
The Itako reached out a gnarled hand, sensing the box of ashes that Hiru had in his pocket.
Bring it to me.
Hiru took it out, his hands shaking, feeling the eerie ghost continue to circle above them.
Do not fear the demon piece,
said the Itako.
She is in a holding pattern. She will circle eternally, reliving her last thoughts until I say otherwise.
How do I release my brothers and sisters from their cages?
The Itako laughed softly.
An ingenious idea of your mother and a cunning evasion of the demon. Only the commands are in the cloud. Your siblings' souls are saved in their robot bodies, locked in place with an ancient type of key that is linked to the module release button beneath the back of their heads. Their consciousnesses can be unchained from the control software in the cloud by the simple touch of her finger. Without it, if you destroy the robots, they would simply be backed up and transferred across the network to the next robot body. Of course, she didn't know the password, as a fingerprint is not a word.
But fingerprints are as ancient as eye scanners. How?
Then a single thought struck Hiru. The reason they were outlawed. Death. He had cremated her, and now there was no fingerprint to unlock anything.
It is not our way to question the past.
She put her hand over the ashes.
But to find answers for the future.
She held the box tightly and it seemed to glow.
Some of my last energy, a piece of your demon mother.
With one hand she grabbed the shifting, moaning ghost and plucked it out of the air, her hand somehow compressing its energy and sending it into the box of ashes.
What will we find?
Grinning, she removed her hands from the container and lifted the lid, except there weren't ashes there anymore. Instead, a bloody finger sat, twitching slightly.
Tanaka-san, this finger will remain alive while I live. Get back to Mars as fast as you can. Release your siblings from their entrapment. No soul must ever be trapped, not even your mother's. When it is done, the finger will turn back to ash, and this piece of your mother will be free to return to her spirit dimension.
Hiroyuki bowed, grateful, taking the finger in the box and putting the lid back over it.
I will do as you say.
Then he bowed again.
Mistress Itako, what about payment? You have helped me more than I can say. How much must I give you?
The Itako looked thoughtfully at him. She stroked her cheek, as though thinking, though Hiru suspected she had known already. Then she indicated her assistant.
I said she had been waiting for you. Beautiful, yes.
Hiru then understood what the Itako had really said when he had first arrived. She had been talking about the girl.
Yes, she is.
He wondered why the Itako had asked him. The girl smiled an even more beautiful smile when she heard this, and Hiru's heart leapt. She came over to join them.
Unlike the rest of the world, we choose our own time, and mine is near.
The old woman adjusted her clothes and position. The meeting was over. This was a business negotiation. She looked at him directly, her white eyes seeming to see him standing there.
I will stay alive for 2 things. 1, until you give all your robots the finger.
She smiled at her old Japanese joke.
2. The Itako tourist season is starting soon, and I want to say goodbye to my regular clients. After the season is over, I will die, and another will be here.
She moved her gnarled hand to find the girl and placed it affectionately against her back.
My granddaughter is not her. She is not for this life. Take her to Mars with you. Give her a new life. Blindness is not the disability it once was, but she will need time to adjust.
Hiru was very happy that it was this. He turned to the girl and bowed. Even though he knew they could not see him do it, he knew they could sense it, and he wanted to show respect.
It would be my honor.
Tears filled her sightless eyes.
Thank you.
She turned and felt around the floor for something, found it, and hefted it onto her shoulder. A small bag. All the belongings she owned. She had known he would say yes.
One more thing.
The old woman looked sternly at him.
You and your siblings are as much to blame for this situation. If you had taken care of your mother when she was grieving, she wouldn't have let a demon in and gone mad. By loving this young lady and taking care of her, you will help redress the balance for your family. By releasing your brothers and sisters from their eternal jails, you will show the universe that you can care, and karma will be restored for your future.
Hiru frowned, but knew what she said was true.
I will make amends. I will do it, I promise. On my honor and the honor of my ancestors and descendants.
He said. He gave a final bow and bid the Itako goodbye, then waited outside while the girl hugged her grandmother one final time. When the girl moved the cloth aside and left the little cave, tears were streaming down her cheeks. Hiru's heart broke at her purity and innocence. He would give her the best he could give. She would be his assistant, his friend, his companion, and his wife. He went to take the girl's bag, but she smiled and waved her hand.
Tanaka-san, I don't think you're strong enough yet. It is all right. I have carried heavier.
Hiru was relieved despite himself.
Then let me take your hand and guide you.
He placed her hand in his, then took her carefully along the wet, steaming path.
And please call me Hiru.
The clouds had cleared, and the sun had come out. It no longer looked like the desolate, hellish landscape he saw on his way in. There was hope here. He could even see some plants poking through the remaining snow. The little Jizo statue stared at him impassively as he passed it again, though this time he thought there was also a slight smile there too.
What's your name?
He asked the girl.
Mirai.
She said.
The future.
He translated.
I like it.